afternoon, dear guests. Good afternoon, dear students. I welcome you on our open lecture. Today, what kind of business do you want to build? You decide. I am Olga Gaiterova. I am an associate professor of marketing and international management department at the Ural State University of Economics. We conduct this lecture as a part of our course, International Entrepreneurship. That's why our main audience today is the third-year students of international management. This course is very practice-oriented. First, students train their business skills, defining business opportunities, business planning, capital budgeting. Second, they expand their vocabulary in business English. And third, they train their soft skills, communication, speaking, debate, team building, critical thinking, decision making. And a very important part of the course is not only the study of theory, but also the opportunity to communicate with entrepreneurs, investors, business consultants. And today we have a fabulous expert. She deals with business issues almost every day. She has a lot of experience, and our expert today is investor, economist, and writer from London, Yana Bakunina. So she will present herself better, so let's welcome Yana. Yana, we're glad to meet you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, that's cool. And you can see me?
We see you.
Okay. Can I see the audience or not?
Unfortunately not, but they see you very well.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, well, I didn't realize this is so I won't be able to see them because I did prepare some element of interaction in this. So I guess you'll have to assist me with asking questions and getting volunteers to speak. So anyway, the sound is very good. So maybe can someone say hello from the audience so I can...
Yes, sure.
Good morning, Yana Bakutina. We are so glad to hear you, and we are so thankful to you for your presence and being today with us.
Great. Okay. Well, okay. I can see a few people now, so that's really good. Okay. Well, I think we should start. Actually, first of all, I wanted to say, how sorry I am to hear the news from Kazan this morning. Well, morning my time. So obviously it's very sad, and hopefully we'll get some more news later on. Okay. So let me very quickly introduce myself. So as you know, my name is Yana Bakunina. I'm from Yekaterinburg originally. I should also say that if I speak too quickly, you should say, can you please speak slower, or can you please repeat? So anytime, please feel free to interrupt. Okay. But I lived here in London for the last 20 years. So I went to university here, as you know, and I've worked in finance. I also have worked in corporate development for a couple of media companies. In fact, this is where I'm working right now. So I work for an animation production company, which is ultimately owned by Sony. I also look after a small portfolio of early stage companies. So a couple of startups we have invested a few years ago. And I'm also writing short stories. So this is it. So, you know, I don't really want to talk about myself unless you want to ask me some more questions at the end, because, you know, for me, it's really exciting to meet you as well and to, you know, share some things that I personally find interesting and I care about. And I hope that you'll find it interesting as well. So thank you those who have answered my questionnaire. That was very helpful. I understand that you get plenty of case studies through your course. And so the overwhelming majority voted against case study today, which is fine. So we're going to do a few other things instead, which hopefully you'll find interesting and thought-provoking. And also thank you for questions you've submitted. That was quite interesting as well to sort of to get those, but a few of those questions are personal, and I would say that a good way to sort of understand a little bit about me and my background is perhaps to read my book, Bird's Milk, which is available on Amazon. And I think if there is any interest, and you could sort of, you know, let me know via Olga later on, I can amend the price. So to do something like, I think it's probably a little bit too expensive for the Russian market at the moment, but I can make it something like one pound. So it's something like 100 rubles or even less for a day. So if you are interested, you could download a Kindle app on your smartphone or your, I don't know, iPad, and you can read it, because that's where I sort of talk about you know, traveling to Europe, going to Oxford, working in finance, and also trying to sort of, sort of understand my own identity. So being obviously still Russian, but now also British. But anyway, I think that's not for today, because I think that, you know, one question someone did ask about Oxford, and I would say that probably my number one takeaway was to be able to think critically. So hopefully, you know, as I sort of live and work and I look at things, I can ask questions, and I can sort of, you know, ask why or why not. And I think that's the best thing you can get out of education. It is not, you know, learning some facts and figures, definitions, case studies. It's the ability to think critically, and hopefully you are getting it from your education right now. So I think we should start with a little exercise, or a little bit of an interactive exercise, which I admit not everyone was keen on. So apologies. So those who are not keen on interaction, you can sit tight. No worries. But those who are keen, so I'm going to start with my little exercise about selling ice cream on Platinka. So I can reveal that, so just to remind you, because obviously you might have answered those questions a while ago. So the question was this: so you are given an opportunity to run an ice cream stall on Platinka for a month, and I'm providing you with good quality ice cream, so it's definitely good product, and all you have to do is to pick a flavor. So the flavors are vanilla or plombier, let's, you know, stick to plombier, and chocolate and chili, so slightly more unusual flavor. And so I can tell you that in fact, 57% of you, so just over a half, have chosen plombier, and 43% have chosen chocolate and chili flavor. And so here we go. So there is no right or wrong answer, but what I'd like to understand is how you decided. So could I please have one volunteer of who have chosen plombier, and I'd like to understand why you chose this particular flavor.
May I elaborate on my choice?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Actually,
What's your name?
my name is Ivan Moiseev. I'm a third-year student here at USU. So actually, when answering the questions of the survey, I opted for vanilla because actually my choice was based on my childhood experience, on my and in this as regards this, I'm more conservative, I would say, because for example, I remembered walking to the shops with my parents, who purchased me an ice cream with the flavor of vanilla, plombier, and so on and so forth. That's why I have chosen plombier and vanilla.
Okay, sounds good. So you are thinking that, perhaps people this summer will kind of choose something nostalgic, something they're very familiar with, something, kind of plain and simple, something that they know, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And how much would you charge for, for this plombier? I mean, let's say it's like the equivalent of, the usual thing. So how much would you charge?
I would say no more than 50 rubles.
Okay, 50 rubles. Okay, sounds good. Now, I'd like to actually, first of all, now I'm not going to see the entire audience, but someone will tell me the answer. So I'd like to ask this question. So if you were given a choice of both flavors, would you choose both flavors? And if yes, can you raise your hands, please? Oh.
One hand.
One hand?
Yes.
Are you kidding me? Okay, hello, guys. This is definitely a right or wrong answer. And this is the one person who's raising his or her hand is right, and the rest of you are wrong. Consumers love to have a choice. Even if you love vanilla, it's always very nice to come and say, ooh, what have you got? And given choice, you choose whatever you like. But you must, maybe you don't remember it from the Soviet days when we had zero choice in the shops. It's not good. Loads of choice is more. So all of you who want to be entrepreneurs and all of you who want to run businesses, you have to remember that consumers love choice because it gives them that kind of freedom. They think they are in power to choose whatever they want. Even if they know straight away that they don't like chocolate chili, they want to be kind of given a choice. You know how you go to a restaurant and you don't want to have just one thing. Even if you want the burger, you want to have, pelmeni on the side as well, just so that you can choose your burger. So this one person, you get a point. Not there is any competition. Okay, so now can I please have a volunteer who voted for chocolate and chili? And I'd like to know why that person chose chocolate and chili.
On microphone. Choose.
Hello, Yana. My name is Nastya Mikolenko. Actually, I don't remember what I chose, but I think that chocolate and chili. My favorite taste is pistachkové, but I like ice cream very much, and I like to try something new. And in 2016, I have been in museum in Kiev, Museum of Ice Cream. There were a lot of flavors, and I think it will be interesting for citizens citizens to try new flavor.
Sounds very good and perfectly reasonable. So this is definitely not wrong or right answer. And now, can I ask you, how much would you charge for that one? And obviously, you know, as you probably know, information is always very valuable. And you know that your friend over there was going to charge 50 rubles for пломбир. So how much are you going to charge for chocolate and chili?
I think it will be cost more than пломбир, maybe 60 or 70 rubles. Okay,
but obviously, as you know, not everyone might like that, you know, so you are saying that your product is more interesting, so potentially there will be people curious to try chocolate and chili, and they will be happy to pay the premium, right? But you also have to be aware then that, you know, maybe not many people will line up to buy your ice cream because, you know, they just prefer пломбир. So I think, you know, it's quite sensible as long as it tastes exactly right. So can I please have another volunteer who has voted for chocolate and chili? A different person.
Silence.
No one. Well,
Nobody.
People have voted. Okay, I'm gonna stick.
It was 57%.
No, it was 43%. I can't remember how many numbers. Anyway, I'll stick with Nastya. Let's go back to Nastya, please. Okay, Nastya, here is the question for you. How much chili should I put? So I'm making the ice cream for you, right? So the flavor is chocolate and chili. So you tell me, I work for you. How much chili should I put in that ice cream? Should I put, you know, a little bit, or, you know, like a lot? So what do you think?
As for me, I prefer a little bit chili, but we can make two kinds of ice cream with a little bit.
One kind.
I think a little bit.
Okay. So here is the thing, like, what is this exercise really about? So I think the first part of exercise is about choosing your product. So whatever you are creating, if you're an entrepreneur or a business that you're running, it could be really any business. So you have to sort of, you know, be very clear about your product, because it has to be really, really good. Even if you are selling something completely basic. I mean, we're not talking about commodities here, right? So we're talking about products. You always want to differentiate yourself somehow. And you always have to be very clear about your target market. So, you know, ideally, you want to have maybe 2 flavors to start with on day 1 or a couple of first days, and you want to see kind of what's shifting, right? What's selling. So if no one is buying chocolate and chili in Yekaterinburg, you know, just don't order it again, right? Just order more of the пломбир flavor, because that's what people want. But if you're thinking that, you know, everyone else is selling пломбир and I want to offer something different, and then you can probably charge a premium for it because it is something different, then you need to get that product absolutely right. And here is the thing. So if someone is coming up to you and says, oh, chocolate and chili, that sounds really interesting. So that person really wants chili, okay? No one is going to buy chocolate and chili ice cream if they don't like chili. So you have to make sure that it has kind of enough of chili so that it is spicy. Obviously, it shouldn't kind of completely overwhelm you because they will just spit it out and never buy it again. But what you're effectively trying to do is you are not only trying to please that person, because that person has an expectation of chili in his mind, but you're also kind of creating a virtual marketing effect, because that person will then come back. You know, he let's say it's a he or a she, they can, you know, invite someone on a date and say, hey, I know this incredible place, they sell this, you know, outrageously good ice cream, and it has chocolate and chili flavor. And then, you know, the word will spread. So basically, it's kind of like, doesn't matter what you are selling, but you always try to connect the product with the audience, and you're always trying to pitch it just right. So there is definitely not the right answer in terms of what you're going to choose, as long as you know that, you know, you have to tweak it. So maybe your price is going to be too high on day one or too low, because that's the other thing. If it's really good quality ice cream, you know, why are you only charging 50 rubles? Because people will be like, oh yeah, that's kind of the same thing I know. So that's a good exercise about, you know, thinking pretty much about any kind of product and service, because, I mean, I can't draw right now, but basically the sort of demand curve, if you studied in economics, for your chocolate and chili type of product is going to be kinky, right? It's going to kind of go like this in a zigzag, because some people will just never buy it because they don't like that kind of weird flavor. But those people who love it, and if it, you know, and if it kind of satisfies their chili taste bud, then they're going to be prepared to pay a premium, and they will come back for it. So basically, you know, maybe you're not going to have as many customers, but these customers are going to kind of rave about you. And also, I sort of gave you a bit of a clue that it's kind of like for a month. So maybe in this particular month, you can try something different. Anyway, so that's just like a little exercise for you. Okay, I'm going to actually ask, do you have any questions on that?
No, thanks. It's quite pretty clear.
Okay. Also, I have, I did write an article about this, not very well. It was written a long time ago, but I will send you a link via Olga to an article about this, so you can kind of, you know, read a little bit more about this exercise if you're interested. And there is another exercise I propose, and then I promise I'll just be talking. But basically, you know, I understand that you are studying management, and so, you know, some of you may go and start your own businesses. Some people will go and just get a job. Maybe later you'll start your own business. But in any case, most of you will probably end up managing people. And I think this is, you know, something that it's kind of, you know, it's very difficult to learn in theory. So it's something that you will only learn on the job. But I propose, but what is very important, of course, is how to motivate people and to kind of learn what motivates people to do their job well. So which is why I send you a piece of paper with some motivation at work. I don't know if you got them. Have you got them?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, Oля, I hope you can assist me.
Yes,
So I'd like to divide the class in two sections. So in one section, so roughly kind of half and half. And so in one section, we'll have employees, and in another section, we'll have managers. Okay, so are you clear who's who?
employees and managers. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So now, employees, so you're working, doesn't matter, you know, you've got a boss. So can you please rank these things on that page in order of importance to you. So the most important thing for you as an employee, as a worker, should be at the top, and then you rank everything else below. So in descending order. So most important at the top and then all the way down. Just roughly, don't overthink it. And then the managers are doing a very similar but different exercise. The managers are also trying to rank these things in the matter of importance. The most important is number one, but you are trying to think, what do you think your employees value the most? So it's not what you think, it's what you think your employees value the most. Okay, I'm going to give you 3 minutes.
Jana, and while students are working, could you read these items? Because, you know, we are on YouTube now.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. Well, so I sort of wrote them down
Yes.
in kind of random order. So let me just find that random order here, because I have written it down for myself in the. No,
I can read. I have them.
Yeah, no, I've got it. Okay, so I'm going to read. Okay.
So motivation at work.
Motivation at work. So there are 10 items here, right?
Yes.
For the moment, they're in no particular order. So we have interest in work, good working conditions, full appreciation for work done. So that's if someone says thank you, yeah. Filling in on things. So that's when your boss tells you, you know, hey, I want you to do this. And that's how it fits into the big picture. Job security means you're not going to get fired any minute. Sympathetic help on personal problems. Good wages. So wages is salary, yeah, it's American English. Promotion/growth opportunities. Tactful discipline. So that means if you've done something wrong, someone will tell you in a nice way, kind of will criticize you, as opposed to tell you to, you know, I'm not going to swear since we're on YouTube, but you get my meaning. And finally, personal loyalty to workers. So I think that means, you know, if kind of your boss is showing you personal loyalty to kind of his staff or her staff.
Can I ask, should we do it personally or in group?
Oh no, personally, you should all do it personally. Just put the numbers, you know, next to it, like 1 to 10. You only have half a minute left. Okay. So now, as you can imagine, I want to hear from some volunteers. So I'm going to get maybe 1 or 2 people from each group. And I'd like you, let's start with employees, please. And I want 1 person to read out the first 3 most important things that you've chosen. Someone from the employees team, please.
Yes, hello. I choose the first interest in work, the second good wages, and the third good working conditions.
Okay, interesting. Sounds good. Another volunteer, please, from employees. Also the first three things.
Okay, the first thing it is good wages, then interesting work and good working conditions.
Are you serious? That's amazing. Exactly the same. Wow. Okay, let's hear another person from employees, please.
Hello, I chose first is good wages, second is interesting work, and promotion and grow opportunities.
Okay, really interesting. Right, well, let's hear from the managers, please. So also let's do three most important things that you think are important to employees.
Hello. First of all, it's good wages. Second, good working conditions. And the third is promotion and growth opportunities.
Okay, sounds good. Another couple of volunteers, please.
So we've chosen three positions like promotion and growth opportunities. The second one is good wages, and the third is interesting work.
Interesting work. Okay. Right. Okay, now I'm going to tell you what this thing is all about. So, I mean, I was kind of hoping that you would be able to replicate the results of a proper study conducted by the Labor Relations Institute of New York in 1946. It hasn't quite happened, but obviously, you know, you are not real workers, you are students and not real managers. And also, this is not a very representative study because, you know, I don't really know the criteria for a proper social study, but you probably need about 10,000 people to sort of participate for it to be statistically valid. But here is the thing. So this survey was first conducted in 1946, and again in 1949, 1980, 1988, 91, and then every year from 1997 to 2001. So basically what I'm trying to tell you is that someone has been doing that. It was all in the United States, many years, consistently. And what these people found is that the results have been pretty much the same. And again, I'm going to give you a link to an article so you can kind of have a look at it in your spare time if you want to. But it turns out that employees have overwhelmingly chose these things in the following order. So number one, full appreciation for work done. So all people need is to kind of hear, thank you, you've done really well. Well done, good job. Number two, filling in on things. So to kind of know that you're not a cog in the machine, but you are, you know, part of the bigger picture, to kind of know, what are we doing? Like, are we building a car and I'm doing this little part here? Number three, sympathetic help on personal problems. And then, you know, I'm just going to read you out quickly. Job security, good wages, interest in work, promotion/growth opportunities, personal loyalty to workers, good working conditions, tactful discipline. So in fact, if your boss is rude to you, no one cares about that. And then the same questions were asked to managers, and managers thought that the most important things are good wages, job security, promotion and growth opportunities. And in fact, these things that employees found most important for them to motivate them to do good work, to work hard, to, you know, produce good results, came at the absolute bottom. So full appreciation for work done, sympathetic help on personal problems, and filling in on things. So unfortunately, I kind of didn't manage to illustrate it here in class, but what these studies have shown consistently is that managers do not actually understand what is important for people who work for them. Because, sure, you'll go maybe for a job at the beginning, which has, a good salary, and it has, like a nice office, and on paper, you're going to be given some kind of career prospects. But at the end of the day, that's kind of, that's when you sign a contract. And when you actually work day to day, what will motivate you, again, if you studied economics, what's kind of your marginal motivation to work every day? It's not going to be, you're not waking up every day and thinking, oh, you know what, my salary such and such is really important. I'm going to do super good work today because of that salary. No, you're actually, this is what the science tells us. And I personally completely agree. So, what you really appreciate is if you are sort of, part of some kind of bigger picture, and if someone appreciates what you're doing. You don't need to be told thank you every day, but, like your manager can show it to you in some other ways. And also, surprisingly, even though we shouldn't be talking about personal things at work, but in fact, if something bad happened to you, to your family, and you came to work and you said, something to your boss, like I sort of, I'm sort of feeling a bit funny at the moment, maybe I will not, I'm a bit distracted. And if your boss gives you the right sort of supportive response, that's what you really value very much. And I can tell you, as someone who's been working for many, many years, I can tell you this is absolutely true. In fact, one of you asked me why I chose to work for Sony. I didn't choose to work for Sony. In fact, Sony doesn't interest me at all as a company, but it is someone who have been working for a few years. He's an amazing boss, and he offered me this opportunity to go and work for him at Sony. And I immediately said yes, because I know that this is a person who is always fully appreciative, who will always kind of look after me, and who will, also make me feel very involved. So whatever we're going to be doing, it's always going to be interesting, and I know that I can make a meaningful contribution. But so I think this exercise shows something about empathy. And I don't know how popular this word, empatia, has become in Russian. Never mind language, just life, because certainly when I was growing up in Russia, I have never heard of it. And, the concept is really very simple. Empathy is all about putting yourself in someone else's shoes, which is very difficult, because by definition, we don't know how someone else feels. But empathy is not about, feeling sorry for someone in hard circumstances. Sometimes it's simply saying, I don't know how you feel, and can you please tell me so I can understand? And that's just being open to something. And I think that's, it's a very good skill, is to learn how to listen, especially as a manager, because sometimes we assume that managers is all about telling people what to do. And in fact, you will achieve a lot more if you just learn to listen and take feedback on board, and then somehow, listening to other people, making sure that you are approachable as a manager. It will get you a really long way. And I think it's been, I don't know, like what kind of literature you're reading about sort of, managerial practices in the last, 5 or 10 years. But certainly there is a lot of really interesting, articles written about how in sort of the startup world, obviously before the pandemic, there was a big emphasis put on putting your kind of pool table or that kind of like table football, having, you know, free breakfast, that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, you know, people don't come to work to play football or pool or have free breakfast. You know, I mean, it's kind of like, it's nice, but it's not the most important things. And actually, if you are being a good human being to people that you work with, that counts for much more than having some kind of gimmicks, basically. So there you go. So now I'm swiftly moving on. So I'm looking at the time, and I'll definitely leave time for questions. But so again, going back to the questions you've asked me, you know, I thought I would tell you sort of what I really care about in terms of future of entrepreneurship, future of business, I suppose, you know, future of us as humanity in general. And I think what I kind of most care about is equal opportunities, so that, you know, we all have opportunities to do well if we want to, and opportunities to have choices. And I also care about positive impact, I suppose. So I think, you know, just to give you an example, so I think that dressing children as soldiers to celebrate 9th of May, in my view, it's my personal view, is a negative impact. I don't think it'll teach children any good. But say, telling positive stories through animation, for example, is very good, because, you know, you could really make it interesting and positive. And certainly, you know, back when we were growing up, animation in Soviet Union was really amazing. And it actually continues in Russia now. So there are some really cool companies that are doing interesting stuff. And I think that's very positive. So you may have heard that when when I was running an investment fund, me and my partner chose to sort of, if you like, discriminate, to do positive discrimination, in a sense that we have chosen to back disadvantaged founders, or overlooked founders, if you like. So we only invested in businesses which were founded by women or non-white or non-straight men, if you like. But most of them were really women. And that's only because there was an opportunity, because overwhelmingly in the startup world, most businesses being backed are run by men. And that is simply because, you know, if I'm an investor and I'm a man, and most investors are men, when I'm deciding how am I going to invest, a startup is very, very risky, right? So someone just comes up to me and says, hey, give me some money into this venture. I'm going to make loads of money in 5 years' time. If it's a brand new business, there is no track record, there is no data, there is nothing but an idea. Sometimes, you know, depending on the stage of this business, you can have some data points, right? So you can say, hey, this is a product. Let's say it's chili ice cream, why not? Chili chocolate ice cream. So I can try a product and I can think, okay, that tastes good. And you can say, well, I've already sold, I don't know, 100 tubs. And you say, okay, it's 100 is nothing, but, you know, okay. And you've got some kind of marketing idea of how you're going to promote it. But at the end of the day, the number one data point that an investor has is an entrepreneur herself or himself, right? So you can kind of tell me any story about what you're going to do in future, but right now, what is kind of solid is that person sitting in front of me or, on Zoom? And again, we're talking about something very, very risky. And so what investors really need is to de-risk themselves. So they have to tell a story in their heads and decide, who am I going to give money to? And even though allegedly I love risk, but actually I want to make it as safe for myself as possible. And what is safe? Safe is the person who looks like me. So if, say, an investor is a white man who went to Oxford, and in front of him sits a white guy who went to Oxford, they're having a conversation to get to know each other. And the younger guy says, hey, I play football in Oxford. And the investor says, oh, amazing, me too. So because they're sort of similar, they look similar, maybe they went to the same school, they went to the same college, maybe, the investor knows his father or something like this. What happens is that very often these guys get all the money. It's not illegal, it's nothing wrong going on here. It's just this unconscious bias, investors don't even realize they're doing it, but they kind of like that kind of guy. I trust this kind of guy. He looks like me, so I'm going to give him money. As a result, people who don't look like investors are not getting money, but it doesn't mean that they're not bright, they don't have good ideas, they're not going to succeed. They just need something, right? And so we thought that we are going to be approachable. My partner was black and also gay. I'm a woman, so we thought, well, we'll be super approachable to all sorts of people, and we will certainly try to back them. And of course, there is like a wealth of evidence. So for example, there is a study, I'm just looking it up here. There is a fund in the US called First Round Capital, which analyzed performance of all companies in their portfolio for the last 10 years. This was done a couple of years ago, and discovered that female-founded companies in its portfolio outperform male-founded companies by 63% in terms of investment returns over a 10-year period. And there are plenty of studies like this, which are coming out only now because previously very few funds in the US backed female founders. So this was always for us a good opportunity. And so sort of just focus right now on startups and early stage investment opportunities, but you can see what this kind of lack of opportunities and lack of diversity in business does. So for example, here is my iPhone. It's big, right? I mean, I'm struggling to hold it with my hand. I've got a little loop here, so I can kind of loop it like this, and kind of, it helps me to grab it a little bit more solidly, because of course it's expensive, it's, I don't want to break it. But this iPhone was designed probably by a male designer. At some point, they were looking at it and thinking, okay, can you hold it, brother? And I say, yeah, I can hold it. So women, hands up if you think your smartphone is too big.
One hand.
One hand. Maybe it's just me, but it's not just me. I'm going to recommend you another book, which I know has been even translated into Russian. It's called Invisible Women by Caroline Criado Perez. I recommend everyone to read it, but especially to men in the audience. And now the example, safety belts in cars. Hands up, women who find them uncomfortable. Okay, now I'm getting somewhere.
5 hands, 6 hands.
they are uncomfortable, okay? If you've got big boobs, they are really uncomfortable. And also, so we know, again, from data that's in the book that I've just recommended you, that women statistically are more likely to die in a car crash. So if a woman sits, doesn't matter if she's a driver or if she's a passenger, as long as she's sitting in the front seat, if there is an accident for whatever reason, a woman is much more likely to die. Why? Because the bags that inflate and jump at you to prevent you from crashing through the window screen have been designed, I mean, now it's changing and hopefully has changed, but have been traditionally designed using male-shaped dummies. So when the car gets designed and gets tested, there is a male dummy against which, you know, these things inflate. And the most that these tests have been using is just taking kind of the same dummy, but smaller. Well, in fact, you know, physiology of a woman is simply different, right? We're not necessarily smaller. Sometimes we're not even smaller, but basically we have kind of different distribution of weight. Again, a bit of weight here, maybe more weight on the hips, all that kind of stuff. Curvature of the spine is different. And so basically it's just kind of good practice to have diversity in all kind of teams, because without it, it's very difficult to imagine how you can design a good product. And a good example of that, I'm going to give you a positive example now. So we are an investor in a company called Olio, which is an app which allows you to get rid of your household waste. So if you've got some, you know, vegetables that you're not going to eat, you can put it on the app and one of your neighbors will take it away. Or if you want to declutter and, you know, get rid of some stuff that you have at home, again, you can use the app to do that. But so who at home is doing kind of all the shopping, all the cooking, and all the decluttering? Well, obviously it's, you know, men and women, but statistically we know that mostly it's women who are doing the cooking, who are doing the cleaning, that kind of stuff. And so of course, if you're designing an app to get rid of household waste, well, it has to be kind of like female friendly, right? And how can we make it female friendly? Well, you probably have to have designers, so software engineers, and by the way, both front developers and back developers who are women. So this company, when they continued to hire developers, so software developers, so they said, so we want to have men and women on the team. And, you know, it's not easy because most software developers are men. But obviously there are women. And so it took them longer to find the right person, but they hired women as well as men. So they can have, you know, women and men on the team. So they can kind of design something which would work for the target audience. And that's really, really interesting. You know, I mean, I don't know about, you know, the situation in Russia, but sort of, you know, here in Britain, it's now been kind of years ago that you might have, say, a fashion company with only men on board of directors, because it's like, well, hang on, how can you run a business which is, say, primarily for women? Of course, there are men who love fashion as well, absolutely, but you absolutely have to have women on board to run a company like this. And so I'm just looking at the time. I think I'm gonna skip this. So, sorry, maybe we'll touch upon this in questions, but I'm gonna sort of say one more thing and then I'm gonna leave it to questions. So there was one question which I really, really liked. So that person also gets a brownie point. And that question was this: should we invest in projects that don't bring profit but achieve goals of sustainable development? it's a really good question, whoever asked. So first of all, should you invest in a project that is never going to be profitable, even on paper? No, definitely not. Don't waste money. But should you invest in projects that, and by the way, again, I'm going to give you an example from economics. So if there is something that addresses sustainable development, but it's never going to make any profit, that's called a market failure, right? And so a market failure should be resolved by government intervention, or perhaps some kind of charity or an NGO should help out. Although it's very hard to run an NGO in Russia right now, or impossible, as you would know. But this is a really interesting question because it's very sort of current, at least where I live. And there are funds, and also there are, of course, individuals who very much want to invest in some kind of positive impact, or even they're called impact companies and projects. And so the way it works, and the way it really does work, and the way it should work, is that at the very beginning, a fund like this would say, okay, what are my objectives? So objective number one is going to be to make return on capital, right? So if I invest, I don't know, $100,000 in a company, and I get maybe, 10% stake in that company, my hope is that in 3 to 5 years' time, this 10% stake is going to be worth a lot more, something like 5 to 10 times more, hopefully. But my other objective is to do good, right? And you can define it, narrowly or broadly. So you can say, I want to invest in projects which tackle waste, which help the environment, maybe which create new housing, projects which create jobs somewhere where, there is a lot of unemployment, and kind of any of the above. And so what happens that when you are given, say, an investment proposal, so you're looking at it and you're thinking, okay, so maybe there are 2 projects, and one of them says, I'm gonna make chili chocolate ice cream, and I'm gonna make a ton of money for you. And the other company says, I'm gonna make chili chocolate ice cream, but I'm going to buy chocolate from farmers in Ghana, where it's like a women's cooperative. So it's not like some rich person running it. Actually, I'm going to kind of provide employment to local women. Then my ice cream is going to be vegan, so it's kind of better for the environment. And I don't know, chili is just chili. Sorry. Anyway, and this project maybe is not promising you as much money because they're paying more money maybe to a women's cooperative in Ghana. So their sort of ingredients are more expensive, and, blah, 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 blah. And basically maybe this project is proposing kind of lower return, but it's doing good. And your objective is to do both, make a profit and also to kind of have some kind of positive impact. So of course you're going to invest in that project. And at the end of the day, none of it may work out. I mean, the chocolate chili idea in Yekaterinburg is a complete flop because no one likes chili. And maybe the other project is also not going to work out, but at least you've done something, and at the very beginning you fulfilled your objectives. And I think that there are funds like this here. There are even funds of funds. I have a very close friend who works in a fund of funds. So that's the fund that invests in funds that invest in charities and companies that are trying to do something good. And they are maybe not making kind of like a ton of money, but they certainly are creating positive impact. And I think that I also like this question very much because it sort of helps you to think about your future as well. you finish university, of course, you probably, you don't have the luxury perhaps of saying, hey, I want to do good. You kind of need a job, right? You need to earn money. Maybe you want to start a family. Maybe you need to support your parents, who knows? But kind of at the back of your mind, you can always have these two objectives running. What is it that you want to do? And maybe if you want to do good and you want to create some positive impact, maybe you're thinking, okay, well, this job sounds great and it pays a lot of money, but I'm just going to be doing something completely meaningless, and just going to, rip. I mean, you can always just start some kind of scam, visit pensioners and rob them of their money. You can get rich like that. It's completely illegal, certainly immoral, but it's an option, and then there is another job, maybe which doesn't pay that much, but maybe you're going to be, sleeping better at night, knowing that you're doing something good. So on this moral high note, I'm going to open the floor to questions.
Okay, thank you, Jana, for a very interesting lecture. So questions, please.
Ms. Bakunina, my main question I'd like to ask you is, how did you come to the decision that you want to study in the UK? And was it a bursary or was it some grant that allowed you to graduate from Oxford?
Okay, so it was the year of 1996. And in that period of time, we were very much looking to the West. I have already studied in Germany for a couple of years, so I sort of finished high school. I studied in English. And at the time, I thought the world was my oyster. I could do anything. And I thought I should go for the best university in the world. And in my mind, that was Oxford. I mean, I wanted to study in England, because once upon a time, your teacher and I went to London and we loved it. And so for me, the choice was between Oxford and Cambridge. And I chose Oxford because it sounded better. It was completely naive. It was I didn't sort of overthink it at the time. And also I found a course that I really liked, which was economics and management. Over the 3 years, I didn't learn anything interesting in management. My favorite subjects was definitely microeconomics. But basically, I applied to study in Oxford from Germany, and I got in. We had to pay, so it's impossible to get a grant really to study in Oxford. Once I was there, I sought kind of financial help, and I got a little bit of money, and then I basically just owed money to the university, which is how I ended up working in banking, in investment banking, in M&A, because at the very beginning of my kind of working life, my number one objective was to make money so I could pay money back for my education, and then I sort of started having other ideas. So I don't know if it's a helpful answer to you, but basically, the world was probably slightly different back then. Maybe it was more possible to do something like that. Maybe I just got lucky. And I will definitely send you a link to the book where I sort of talk about that in quite some detail.
Jana, you're right. You described it all perfectly in your book, Bird's Milk. So we're waiting for this link, and I will share this link with our students.
Jana, as we know, you are working for a London company. Have Russian company even been asked you for help? If it was, could you give an example?
Well, I have worked for a couple of, well, I worked for an American investment bank. I've worked for a British investment bank. I worked for another American investment bank. I worked for a kind of a multinational company with headquarters in Paris and London. I worked for myself. I worked for another British company, for many individuals here. Now I work for a Japanese company. And yes, of course, I sort of have come across Russian businesses. So especially when I was working in banking, in advisory, I think at the beginning of my career, I wasn't meeting very interesting people. There were people who were running, let's say, electricity networks in Russia. So people who kind of ended up at the top without any particular merit. So they were not very interesting to deal with. But then I also met some really interesting people who work in media in Russia, who were running channels, production companies, like mostly in television. So I spent quite a lot of time working in sort of television, but working in corporate development. And there were some like super, as you know, there are like a ton of talent in Russia, and there are many opportunities to do business in Russia, but unfortunately there are also many difficulties which we here don't have in the West. We are privileged in that way that people kind of, you can just build your business without any sort of challenges or complications. So yes, I mean, most recently I was looking at, and I don't have anything to do with them, but I've done some pretty detailed work on Masha and the Bear. I don't know if you know that cartoon, Masha and Medvedь. I'm sure you've heard of it. So I have sort of come across them. I've also been looking at Like Nastya, which is this now 6-year-old YouTuber, and her parents, who now are multimillionaires and live in Florida, but they just run a YouTube channel with this pretty girl Nastya, just advertising the toys and dresses she likes to wear. And, they're doing really well.
Thank you.
Yana, thank you for the speech. And I have one question. What was the most important experience during your career?
That's a really good question, and I'm not sure. I think that I wouldn't sort of highlight one experience, but I would tell you this, that anything you do will give you some experience which you will be able to use later on. It's really interesting. So one of the most common mistakes for graduates is that you start your first job or maybe your first business and you are afraid to leave that first job, even though you absolutely hate it and you really don't want to be doing it. But you kind of have this feeling that, well, I've studied, I sort of studied so hard, maybe I paid for my education, and now this is the job, and like, what's wrong with me? Like, why can't I just do it? Why can't I enjoy it? Like we talked about, this motivating factors, right? There are career prospects, the wages are good, the working conditions are good, but for one reason or another, you hate it. And there is that kind of fear to quit because you think that quitting is some kind of sign of weakness. And maybe actually this generation is not like that, and I hope not, because your first job is just that, your first job. It's incredibly difficult to quit that first job psychologically, but once you do that, it becomes like super easy and you never kind of look back at it. And I really hope that you remember this if you ever feel this way, because very few people these days do what kind of my parents did, which is work the one job or two jobs their entire lives. And also you are very young and you will hopefully live very long lives, and the world is changing very rapidly. So you will probably end up doing a job which doesn't even exist right now. So you have to keep an open mind and kind of remember that, you know, even as you're doing something which you think is kind of totally meaningless, or you will never use it again, in fact, you always will. So to give you an example, because otherwise it sounds very abstract. So I wrote a book, Bird's Milk, and I had to, you know, I was trying to get it published. And so first, the way it works in the UK is you have to find an agent who will then represent you to publishers. So I send a letter and, you know, a copy of my manuscript to a few agents, and some of them, you know, replied and actually even spoke to me over the phone, and kind of gave me some feedback. And then one agent actually took me on, which was great. So it taught me a few things. It taught me kind of that failure is fine, rejection is fine, because, you know, at the end of the day, you only need one employer to give you a job. You only need one agent to take you on. So people saying no to you is kind of, you know, it's part of life. You know, in relationships, again, you know, you will be rejected, hopefully not too many times, but you know, this is just how life is. But those people who replied to me, who actually took their time to read, you know, like first 5 chapters of the book, and who kind of wrote back to me to explain why they won't take me on, or same with the publishers, you know, I really valued that. I thought that these people sort of took their time to kind of write back to me. And, you know, it takes time to draft a good email. And so when later on I was working as an investor and people would write to me to look at their opportunities, so I was, you know, for me it was a rule, even if your business proposal was idiotic, you know, which some are, you know, I would always reply, I would always thank you for getting in touch, and I would sort of say, well, unfortunately it's not for us, and I would try to explain why, because I thought that, you know, in this culture, I don't know about Russia, but here people just don't reply. You know, you send something, like you'll never hear back from them. And that's just rude. And I understand that, you know, some people get like 1 million of emails and it's not possible to reply to all. But through kind of my personal experience in being a writer, I then sort of transferred that experience in becoming an investor. And I thought that that would be, you know, something that I would do differently. And, you know, the feedback I was getting from people who sort of, you know, contacted me, they said, oh, wow, you know, we never even hear back. And so thank you very much for, you know, giving us kind of constructive criticism and that kind of stuff. And, you know, I think at the end of the day, you know, like you have to be a decent person. Like you have to sort of, you have to behave well. And if you behave, I mean, I don't know if like if some of you believe in a concept of karma, you don't have to, but just to know that if you treat people well, if you go to like some kind of, you know, fast food restaurant right now and you say thank you to whoever is serving you, you know, that kind of becomes a habit and you end up being nice to people. And then you will see that you will attract good people as well, because, hey, you know, people would want to kind of hang out with you. And it's just, you know, it's like, by the way, this is how in Oxford they conduct interviews. So they, the tutors decide who they're going to teach. So you apply and you show, like, I did really, really well at school, you know, and here is my essay and blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, you know, they talk to you and they decide, like, do I want to teach this person from Russia? Who is this random person? I don't know what I've said, but, you know, I kind of got lucky because you try to be personal. So I think that just to remember that, you know, we're all people and we all want to be treated well, that would be a very good lesson. I'm sorry, I can't remember the question now.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, there are a lot of questions from students about your personal life, about your experience, and about how digitalization influence the business models of entrepreneurs.
Well, you know, you guys never had it so easy before. That's just like, there's no question. You know, these days you could do everything from the, you know, from your own bedroom. I know it's more difficult in Russia because, you know, your server can be shut down or something like this. But still, you know, these days you really, you know, like, I don't know if you guys have like TikTok or that kind of stuff. There are people who are absolutely crushing it just by doing some kind of, I don't know, completely pointless and meaningless, but very funny TikTok videos or YouTube videos, and basically just making money with advertising. And you know, it's like I was telling you about, like Nastya. I mean, that's just, you know, her parents. Her mother was a wedding planner and her father was a builder. The girl was born with some developmental difficulties, they were told. So they sort of tried to really engage her, to play with her. And then they started filming, and then they kind of started YouTube just for fun. And now, you know, they made a ton of money. I mean, this is just an example how it's actually possible to do something from nothing. She's one of the, she's certainly like top 3 sort of children's channel on YouTube in the world, or something crazy like this. And probably in top 10 of all YouTube channels in the world. So we're talking about, you know, like music videos in India. I think it's one of the most popular channels, or some kind of like Indian films channel. Maybe it's number 2, and there she is. So I think it's like, you know, entrepreneurship, it's about, you know, it's also about opportunity, you know, that's the other thing. So you like, so some people, you know, of course there is like talent, but it has to be hard work. Like, it's incredibly hard work, and it's all about just trying something, you know, maybe it's not working, tweaking something, and then thinking, okay, you know, is it working? Is it not working? Why not? But at least like having a go, because I can absolutely promise you that whatever you start on, it doesn't matter what type of scale, you will always learn something, and it will be super valuable experience. So if you want to try something, and everyone, like your family and if you have the ability to do that, you know, because, you know, maybe you just need like to work and just rest, and that's absolutely fine. But if you want to do something, you just do it. I mean, that's kind of like, and you have to be a little bit naive about it. You know, I'm like that. I'm kind of thinking, hey, I can totally do this lecture. How hard can it be?
Yes, we like your lecture very much.
I hope so.
Frankly speaking. Yes, and Jana, and what are the main mistakes in business startups? What do you think?
Yeah, that was a good question. Well, so I think the one, okay, I mean, from top of my head, you know, one, I don't know if it's the number 1 mistakes, but one of them is to overthink it and over-research it and procrastinate. So if you're thinking, oh, I've got this amazing idea, but you first have to do like research, I've got to like do some kind of survey, I've got to read all the articles about it, I have to read like 10 business books, you will never start it. Like, you know, you might as well give up today. I can promise you, if this is what you are doing, you will never start, you will never advance, nothing will come out. Because, I mean, of course, you have to do a bit of market research, right? So like, I mean, probably selling chocolate chili ice cream in Russia, you may not be like Russian people sort of stereotypically are not known to like chili, although, you know, we like adjika, right? So maybe there is some market for spicy food. But what you need to do is just to kind of try. So the mentality of a successful entrepreneur is to have some kind of idea. So my idea is that, you know, chocolate chili is going to be, you know, the hit of the summer. Sorry, I keep just using the same examples, but I don't want to think of other ones, just to keep it simple. And so here you go. You put in good amount of chili, you start selling. So then, you know, people are kind of like, you know, you give it to try and people say, okay, what do you think? Maybe they'll say, you know, it's not sweet enough, or I don't like chili. Can you come up with any other flavors? Because it's really creamy and it's like, I like it, but just not this flavor. So basically you always have to kind of have an idea, launch something very basic. It doesn't have to be perfect. So it's not about spending a ton of money on some designer, because you can go to like Fiverr.com and get a design for $5 or something. So you design something, you test it, you learn from feedback, and then you change or keep going, ordering more. That's called feedback loop. So that's kind of how you have to think about it. So you try, you test, you learn, you keep going. And by the way, you know, maybe the lesson is, no, I don't want to stand on my feet all day. You know, it's like, I don't want to be churning ice cream at night and then selling it during the day or something, because that could be another thing. So that's like sort of procrastination over research is mistake number one. Mistake number two is to think that, oh, you have to be super secretive about your idea. So that's another popular one. So it's kind of thinking, oh, I've got this amazing idea, but I mustn't tell anyone about it. Well, you know, I don't know, like, what if you want to open, I don't know, like something in Yekaterinburg, and then you keep it super secret and you put some money, you go in, and then you find out no one wanted it in the first place. It's like, how crazy is this? On the other hand, you talk to people about it, and not, you know, not just like your mother, because your mother will say, oh, of course, you'll do wonderful, Alyosha, my darling, you'll be a great success. Hey, you have to like ask people who don't, you know, who won't have sex with you, like, or it's not your mother. You ask people, it's like, oh, what do you think? I'm going to do this. So you kind of like will get a bit of feedback. And also, you know, maybe you can't do it alone. You need collaborators. So I think keeping like a one big secret is not going to help, because you kind of need to start testing the idea, to start sort of doing something about it. You know, another mistake is that this kind of thinking that you need a ton of money to start something, because again, there are so many digital resources and you can kind of do something on the cheap just to test the idea, like a prototype. And if it works, you know, then you can say, hey, look, this works really well. Give me more money. I'll buy more milk and sugar and make more ice cream, and we're all going to be rich. I'm going to have to go and buy some ice cream today. This is like becoming one of those. So these are, you know, like kind of top three things that I'm thinking about. Certainly, like also, as I sort of mentioned, focusing too much on unimportant things. So I had this. I remember once I quit my job and went traveling for a year, and I ended up doing it on my own. But at the beginning, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he was like, oh yeah, totally want to do it. And goes, well, what kind of towels are we going to take with us? And I'm like, well, why are you talking about towels? You know, it's like a big picture. It's like, you know, have to quit your job, like, you know, save some money to do that. He was talking about towels. So it's not about your logo or your name or anything like that. It's just about trying to create something that is solving some kind of problem. There definitely has to be a market for it, and you have to price it in the right way. So it's and also it has to be something special, because if it's another plombier type of ice cream, well, there's a ton of that, and who wants another one? Not me. I'm going for pistachio. Nastya, I'm totally with you. It's my favorite as well. We've bonded that way. If I come to Yekaterinburg, you have to tell me where I can buy that in Yekaterinburg. Oh, I can't hear you.
Oh, okay. And one more question, probably the last question, because we should finish. Yes, and so to start business, an entrepreneur needs investments. Yes, and he or she develops a business plan and goes to investor, shows this business plan to investor. And so what parts of business plan are the most important for investor?
The most important for investor is traction, and that's not in the business plan. So traction means that you have to get something started. Very, very, very few investors, unless again it's your mother, will, or unless it's someone who's backing, if Mark Zuckerberg came out of Facebook and said, hey, I've got this new idea, give me some money, like we know he can build a business, we'll give him some money. But otherwise, it's practically impossible to get money, what's called off paper. So business plan is, obviously it's not on paper these days, but like it's kind of paper. No, traction means if it's an ice cream stall, you have to have the product, you have to have made some sales. If it's an app, and this is kind of unfortunate because of course you need a little bit of money to develop something, but you know what? Go and learn how to code and try to build some kind of prototype of an app, and then try it, or find people who do that, make them your co-founder and do it together, and then get some users, show what it does. Any business like this, you need, because you have to remember the investor, like as I said at the very beginning, they want to de-risk themselves. So it's kind of controversial because they want to put money into something risky, but not really, they want to make money, but they want to kind of make it safe. And the safe way is, obviously if it's an experienced entrepreneur, that's making it safer. But also if you kind of can demonstrate to me that you've already made some progress. So the word traction, same as progress. So have you made some sales? If it's a business that you have B2B clients, if you're selling to business, so have you already got some clients who are already working with you, and so you need more money to boost your team, to build the product, to do a little bit of marketing. People will give you money for that, but it's virtually impossible to get money off paper, also because there will be people who will have that traction, who will kind of have already, business that is already going somewhere. And so an investor would rather give money where someone has demonstrated some early success.
Okay.
I'm sorry. So business plan, very good, but not helpful.
Okay, thank you very much for your
seminar,
for your lecture, for your experience, great experience, and so our students are very inspired, and your lecture was very useful and interesting. So let's thank Yana. We're looking forward.
It's nice to meet you, even though I haven't really seen you. I only been looking at myself on the screen. And I don't think I've sort of managed to cover everything that I wanted to cover, but hopefully, you know, some of it will kind of stay with you. And I wish you all the very success, because, you know, you guys are our future. Like, I depend on you, because the world is changing very rapidly, and you are the people who will be shaping that future. So make it good, no pressure.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Okay, thank you, students. Our lecture is over. So I hope that it was very interesting, yes, and useful for you. So a lot of questions, a lot of answers. So we're looking forward to other lectures from Jana. So